I'm just going to take a moment and drop a truth bomb on all the parents listening today. We cannot read the minds of our kids. And yet, how many times do we approach them as if we can? How many times do we begin conversation with, I know why you did that, or you definitely did it for this. And if we continue to do that and approach it that way, you're going to have a kid who no longer wants to share their point of view with you. And so if you can relate to that at all, I know I can. I know I like to think I can mind read, and I know I can definitely feel like I know exactly why my kids did stuff. And we're going to dive in today to tell you why that's so common and why most parents do it. And it's a very human thing to do, but also how powerful it can be to change those dynamics and why your kid is begging you to change it, because it is going to be a hindrance to you creating the relationship you want to have with your kid. And we're going to give you some clear steps that you can do today. We're going to challenge you at the end, give you a very clear, specific challenge that you can start implementing this week that's going to help you transform this pattern and this dance in your family. So before you jump into it and get ready to dive into this knowledge, please take a moment to pause and rate and review this podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback on how these episodes are helping you. It's always so encouraging for us to hear how we're helping families, because that's what drives Sarah and I to do this work. Is we love to help empower parents to be the parents they want to be and create the relationships that will last a lifetime with your kids. So take a moment and do that, and then sit back and enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the Art of Raising Humans.
The Art of Raising Humans is a podcast designed to support, equip, and encourage parents on how to create long-lasting, deeply connected relationships with their kids that's free from fear and shame. Come join us on the journey. Hello, and welcome to The Art of Raising Humans. I'm Kyle.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
And Sarah, I want to ask you a question. Can you read our kids' brains?
No.
Oh, you can't? Oh my gosh. So many times I feel like I can. So many times I think I know exactly why they did what they did. And many times, Sarah, when I'm coaching parents, they're pretty much convinced that they can read their kids' brain.
Well, we've been around them their whole lives and we know them very well. So of course.
Yeah. So we've known them since they first took a breath, right? So we know almost better than they do why they do what they do, right?
Yeah.
And that's actually why I brought this topic up when you and I were brainstorming, man, what do we want to talk about 2026? This is one I thought we just need to do a whole podcast on, because I think a lot of parents, and maybe the listeners right now, we're with you, we tend to, in these moments of conflict, believe we can read our kids' brains.
Yeah. And I think there's just like a little hint of truth in that, right?
Yeah.
Because we do actually know them very well.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we do have really great insight into why they're doing what they're doing, right? So there's this piece, because that can be true. Well, then it just falls into, then I can read their brain and I know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, even though we wouldn't say, well, I don't think that.
Yeah.
But we kind of, because there's a little truth to it, then I think we go too far with it.
There was one couple I was coaching. I just remember when they were kind of talking about why their kid did something. And then I asked them, how they know that for sure. Well, we've known him his whole life, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I've known Sarah for over 23 years. I still don't know why Sarah does what she does.
I mean, if that's what we're going to use, then yeah, think about that one, guys, because I know he can't remember.
That's right. Well, and I think if I came towards you as if I did, I think that would upset you. I think it would frustrate you. No one likes that. No one likes when people assume they know what you're thinking. We want people to be curious, right? So
even though sometimes you might know what I'm thinking, or there's sometimes you know me very well, and you can have some good insight.
Sure.
It still doesn't turn
it's
into
lacking a lot of
you're
information.
always right.
Yeah.
You actually can read my mind. You do know what you just sometimes do. And we have to keep that in mind.
Yeah. So think about like these moments that happen, right? Maybe your child rolls their eyes at you, or your teen shrug and says nothing. Or your child ignores you again, right? And just think about what that triggers in you. And immediately, like, you start to believe, most parents will immediately decide why that behavior is happening. And they'll jump to these assumptions like they're being disrespectful, or they just don't care. I've heard that. These are the ones I've heard a lot, right?
Yeah, I think it's
they're doing this on purpose, right? And so basically, like, the core idea here is one of the most common parenting mistakes that we make, but also that we see parents make, is acting like we can read our kids' mind. And then we start parenting from that assumption as if it is true.
Yeah,
right?
then we really get in trouble because we're
Yeah.
like, oh, I've read their mind. I know what they're doing. And we're there before we know it, right? With a lot of parenting stuff we're already correcting them,
Yep.
engaging in whatever the situation is from that assumption.
Yeah. So we want to, first of all, just say this is super common.
Mhm.
And you'll notice everybody does this under stress.
Mhm.
When we're under stress, we start to jump towards assuming and believing we know why somebody's doing something.
Yeah, we're going to
okay?
get into why.
Yeah. So first of all, let's talk about,
So good.
well, you want to get into why, but let's start with what.
No, I'm not. I'm saying down the road.
Oh, got it,
We're
got
going
it,
to
got
get,
it, yes.
and it's really exciting.
Yes. So let's talk about first what do we mean by mind reading? Okay. That mind reading is basically assuring we know our child's motives or their intentions without actually checking. Without even many times just asking open-ended questions about it, right? We just jump right to it. We start making declarative statements that are just like, I know why you did that, right? And so like some quick examples, like you didn't do your homework because you're lazy.
Yeah.
We've heard that one before.
Yep.
You're talking back to be disrespectful,
Mhm.
okay? You're lying to avoid the consequences,
Mhm.
right? All those are things that I'm sure many people have either heard said or said themselves, okay? So it's important though to take a moment and pause here and think about this. We don't talk to our child as they are. We talk to the story we've made up about them.
Yeah, I love this.
Yeah.
There's so many little like good one-liners
Mhm,
that we have in our notes, guys. So listen closely. No, but I love that. So we make this assumption and we're moving from that place.
Mhm.
And that's so everything in me goes, oh yeah, I do that.
Yeah.
So I'm operating from something I don't know for a fact to be true. I think it's true and is based on maybe some pretty good evidence.
Yeah.
But I don't actually know.
Well, many times, Sarah, this is why kids end up opening up to somebody like me as a counselor,
Mhm.
right? Or to a teacher or a
friends.
mentor or their friends, because they don't believe that story. They think that, and I remember even feeling that going into college, that I thought there was things about me that just were true. And then I met people who didn't supposedly have all this background that my parents had. And they believed other things, like they assigned different motivations to my behavior. And I was like, well, maybe it is that. Maybe I am doing that because
They were also open.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel that where it's like, oh, they're open because they actually don't have the assumption?
Yeah.
So then they were just curious and open to what
Yeah.
you were saying or what you were doing.
That felt so good, didn't it?
Yeah.
It felt so good for them to
Fresh.
go, oh, I thought you did it because of this. I'm like, oh my gosh, no one ever thought that.
Why did you do that?
Yeah, so I asked that. Yeah.
What was that?
But what the point is, though, when we do that, Sarah, we as parents, we get pretty confident in these stories and almost think in our minds that these are true. And there's no way, like almost like we know more about the kid than the kid knows about themselves, right?
And probably every listener right now goes, yeah, but for this, I know it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then
It's hard not to.
and that confidence, like you're saying, it's not the same as being accurate. You've got to be humble and realize you don't know all the truth,
Mhm.
that there are things in your kid's head that you do not know, that they are a complicated human and there's thoughts they have or perceptions they've gotten that you're not aware of.
Yeah. So confidence is not accuracy.
Yes, it is not. Okay, so now why do we do this as parents? Let's kind of talk about the brain and the nervous system. First of all, the brain hates uncertainty.
Mhm.
Okay, uncertainty is scary. It causes us anxiety.
Yeah. I want to jump in. I don't remember the details. So hopefully this will be good enough. I remember my son loves science books and there's these pictures and you look at the picture and it asks you questions and you don't even realize it. But the end of the point of the whole exercise is to figure out that it's actually not all there and your brain filled in the blanks. But when you look at it, you're absolutely certain it's all there.
Yeah.
But your brain actually filled it in. We watched this thing on the brain. And I mean, there's so many different pieces about this where this is solid science, not from a psychological standpoint, but just like your brain fills it in.
No, but
Vision,
you see that all the
the
time on social
shadows.
media too, like where people have written paragraphs and your brain went ahead and put in words that weren't there
Or
fixed words that were messed up. And that's what so we've got to be a little bit suspicious or at least curious about what my brain is assuming is happening, right?
Yeah.
That my brain wants to have certainty to know you did this for this because that somehow makes me feel safer, right?
Yeah.
And your brain will fill in gaps, especially under stress.
Yeah. And so, and you're going to feel that sense of certainty because that's what your brain is looking
Yeah.
for. So you're like, awesome, got it, I'm absolutely sure. And you'll have all the points to back up why you're so sure.
Yep.
But now we know we got to look at it and go, oh, I'm so sure, but my brain fills things in. So I can't, can't trust.
And Sarah, I remember this when we first got married. I mean, I didn't, I thought I knew you, but obviously I'd only known you for 2 years, and all of a sudden we're married now. And there's all these things that, especially under stress, when we would get into arguments, stress wants speed, not accuracy. I want to quickly be able to tell you what you're thinking. And if I actually stopped and would ask you, I was like, there's so much I don't know about you. I mean, obviously there was so much history I didn't know about you, your upbringing, and then you would tell me what you were thinking. And lo and behold, it wasn't the same as I would have thought, because we're different people.
Right. Different backgrounds, all kinds of details that are different. So your brain is going to fill in with what it has available. It doesn't mean it's right. It's just doing its best.
So whenever you start to get dysregulated, the neutral behavior starts to feel threatening. Okay. We assume negative intent, and we react instead of ask questions. We're not curious, So whenever you're dysregulated, you'll notice that starts to happen. You'll feel whatever your kid is doing is a threat. And then what you're going to need, you're immediately going to assume something bad. They're lazy, they're disrespectful, they're rude, they don't care, all these kind of things. They're never motivated, or they won't do anything, or won't take responsibility. All these kind of thoughts will pop up in your head. And we start to just react to it in an effort to change it, okay? And so I love this line: a dysregulated parent's brain almost always assigns a negative story. So take a moment to think about that.
Kind of how our brains function. We think it's going to be something bad. We think that noise is a bear in the woods coming to eat us.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever woken up at night to a crash. Your brain immediately thinks someone's broken, everything, your brain goes to trying to survive. So even in an argument, even when your child has done something, it moves into that negative space.
Yeah. And what I've seen happen, Sarah, is this kind of mind reading 100% begins to damage the connection they have with their kids.
Yeah. Okay. Just if someone read your mind, you wouldn't like it.
Because what kids tell me is they feel completely misunderstood. Yeah. And then when they feel misunderstood, they don't feel safe with you to be vulnerable and to be open and honest. And then they'll be less cooperative because they really don't feel like you're curious about them. They feel like you're just there to tell them what they're doing and why they're doing it. And it starts to create the kid to be defensive, and the kid will start to shut down. They stop explaining, and they just start, they start kind of like counteract whatever that story is, through that defensiveness. And they stop wanting to connect with us. Because who would want to connect with that person who's always assuming the negative intent and reading their brain? And
it wouldn't work in other relationships, which I know we say that a lot, and it's just true. I love that because it helps me sort of reframe it. That doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good when someone comes to me and says, I know why. If a boss, whoever, you came to me and said, you did this because of this is what you're doing, and they tried to read it all to me, everything in me would immediately feel defensive, would immediately feel like, well, that's not true and that's wrong, and you don't understand this. And so why would I want to come to talk to you?
Yeah, because if you already know my intent, then why would I tell you the truth?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like you're not even open to a different way of looking at it.
If there's a piece where it's true, I really messed up. Now I feel really, really unsafe to come and talk to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why would I be vulnerable to you? You're just going to read it all, think what you want to think. So everything in me kind of goes, well, forget it.
Sarah, I've had teenagers say that, like, that they, for the most part, had been making change and positive change, and then they did mess up. And now they don't, the very thing the parents saying, I want them to be open to us, I want them to tell me. But now the kid's like, this will confirm everything they've been believing about me. It will confirm that I'm a bad kid to them. It will confirm all these stories. So I can't do that. And that's kind of what it ends up leading to, is when we assume the worst, we start to train our kids or anybody to hide and not to grow and change, right? That they just want to go into hiding mode and kind of keep away from you because they don't want to back up the story you've been saying about them.
Or here, I want to hide. I'm just hearing this. I think, well, yes, I want to hide. Forget it. Why would I engage this?
Yes. So kids and teens often don't feel fully understood when it comes to their motivations. And And what ends up happening is it causes a real problem in the behavior, okay, and the communication of it. So it leads to confusion between you and your kid. It leads to gaps in skills that they need to learn from you. It starts to make the emotion much bigger than it needs to be. So a lot of emotional dysregulation and overload. And they have this strong fear of disappointing us. And basically the fear that they will become the thing you keep saying they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's just humans. And who are you going to come to? The person you feel safe with.
Yeah.
And over again, I tell myself this all the time. I need to be the safe parent they can come to.
Yeah.
And I need to do the work to be that safe parent they feel like they can come to.
Yeah. So it's important to kind of maybe stop, sit back, and just take a moment to kind of think about this truth, that if your kid had the skills to do better, they would. Okay. If they had the skills to do better, they would. But this is so helpful to me, Sarah, when I sit back and think about why are they doing this? What they do, like the assumption will be they could do better and they're choosing not to. And the truth is that if they could do better, they would. Nobody wakes up and wants to fail. Mm-hmm. No kid wants to wake up and hurt their relationship with you. Yeah, that's not their goal. That's never their intent. Mm-hmm. So if your brain is going there, we're missing some information, you know? Yeah. And so that's where we want to build this curiosity, because curiosity will start to build trust. You know, when you're curious about why I'm doing something, it starts to build trust that you actually want to know me. And then that trust, here's kind of the cool steps, is that trust will increase honesty and openness. And that honesty will help support long-term change in the behavior. So you got to first come with that curiosity to build the trust. The trust will help the person be more honest with you. And that honesty will help them get to a brain, the part of the brain where now they can actually make long-term change.
Right. It's very well said. Very succinct.
Yes, okay.
I mean, it's not easy. It's a lot of work. And sometimes you really have to take the part of your brain that is so certain.
Yes.
And you have to shove it aside. Yeah. No, I'm going to go in with curiosity. And you feel this total shift inside of you when you think, okay, I'm going to put all my thoughts about this aside. And I really want to hear what they have to say. And if you've been on the other side of that, someone coming to you that way, to feel seen and to feel heard like that, it's very moving.
Well, and I think what you said there too is just to remember, if I'm having that certainty, if I'm having these thoughts, right, it's because I'm seeking that certainty because it gives me some sense of control, you know? And so if my brain is completely closed off to any other alternative reasons that might have been going on here, then I'm not going to be able to build trust. I'm not going to have connection. There's not going to be honesty, you know? Yeah. And I mean, you can see it when a parent's talking to a kid. Yeah. You can see that kid go, oh, you're not open. You don't want to hear any other ideas. So the only option is believing what you said is the total truth and there's no other possible things there, right? So basically, let's kind of talk about that, about the role of curiosity in this to really help us. That curiosity, first of all, is not permissiveness, okay? It's not just saying, yeah, whatever the kid does is okay. But it's about understanding before there's any correction.
Yeah. And because I was thinking the whole time, there's going to be that part of your brain that goes, the whole time your child's telling you, there's going to be the part of your brain that goes, right.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to realize that's going to happen and try to remain in the curious part, because the other side of you also goes, yeah, but they're just going to think anything they do is fine. And when are we going to get back to circling around to correcting what they did wrong? Because I told them and they didn't do this or whatever the story is. And so I think it is very important, because sometimes well-meaning parents, either you switch back because you think, well, I can't let them get away with it, or you lean into it so far, you become permissive. And that's not your intention. Yeah. But then you think, oh, I don't want to do this. And then you fall into the permissive side, and we've got to be able to hold both. So this next stage is very important. Yeah.
So some just curious questions that you could ask is, help me understand what's going on, or what was so hard or so difficult about that? What were you hoping would happen? I think those are, I love that last one.
I know, that's one of my favorites.
Would happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then why this works, because it lowers the defensiveness between you and your kid. Yeah. It engages reflection, which is what we want to raise kids who aren't afraid of reflecting. All of that is growing their prefrontal cortex and helping them have the courage to look at what they did, what they were trying to achieve, and to be able to reflect that, do I like what I did? Do I like the outcome there? And to be able to actually have that conversation. And then it also keeps the connection intact.
Yeah, I was going to say this could be a little hard if you haven't done this with your kid before. I just want to put a little statement in here. If your kid isn't used to that reflection, you might get I don't know, because they don't. Yeah. Sometimes they don't. And so sometimes you might even throw out some guesses. Oh, I wonder if you thought that by doing that, this would happen.
Yeah.
And you could be totally, you need to. They'll sense it if you're not really coming from a curious place.
Love that. Yeah.
So go do your work and make sure you don't address this or engage it until you're truly curious.
So what you're saying, we can't fake it.
Yes.
So don't try to fake it. So we gave you some questions, but the questions might not work if you're faking it.
Yeah,
right?
Kids will pick up on it, and you need to allow them time and be light about it. Don't just come all serious. What did you think was going to happen? You need to be like, well, what did you think? What were you hoping for?
Yeah. And so, then that brings up another fear that parents have, Sarah, is if I start to just assume the best or think the best, that the kid's just going to take advantage of me. I'm going to look like a fool, right? Because I'll think my kid can never do anything wrong. I'm always thinking that everything they're doing is good. And we've seen some silly stuff like that in media, or where like a kid's on American Idol and they can't sing at all. The parents like, you're a great singer, son, you're gonna be a star, right? And like, that's not what we're talking about.
Don't worry, we're gonna bring this all back around.
So assuming the best doesn't remove boundaries, it just changes how you hold those boundaries, and it changes how you approach the kid, right? It changes how they're going to perceive you as you approach them. They'll feel it that you assume good things about them.
Right. So it's really, really important. Okay. So we're still holding the boundary, but this coming with curiosity completely feels different. It feels different inside of you. It feels different for the child. When someone has come to you, if a boss has come to you to give you some feedback and change how you're doing something, if they come and ask you, why did you do the presentation? Truly asking you, and then they come in with how they want it to change, that feels very, very different.
Yes.
But it's not that they don't tell you how they want it to change or what needs to happen.
Yeah. So you can actually believe your child isn't a malicious little terrorist and still hold limits with them. Accountability, actually, like you said in the workplace, it always works best when dignity stays intact, right? When you actually honor that person, that actually is going to help the accountability to be there, right? And this may hit you hard, but it's a truth. Kids grow into the version of themselves they feel believed in. Right. So like if you believe them to be, and I know we've heard, parents at times joke about this, a little terrorist, don't be surprised when they turn into a kid that's completely out of control, because they're going to think that's what you think they are.
Dramatic, selfish, lazy. Really take those things out of your vocab, because it's not going to help, because your kid's brain goes, oh, okay, that's what I am. Okay, that's what I need to do.
Okay, so here's what to do instead. So how to change those dynamics is, first of all, pause that story that you have in your head and ask yourself, what am I assuming in this moment? And do I actually know this? So maybe, I love to use this open hand metaphor. If you're on YouTube right now, you can see me doing it. I want to come with open hands rather than a closed fist. So a closed fist is basically like, I know why you did this. I know, instead, if I open my hand and I'm just curious as to what I'm assuming, do I actually know this? Okay. Step 2 would be to regulate your body first. Take some deep breaths, slow your breathing down, lower your voice, and unclench your muscles. This isn't a fight or flight where I need to fight you type situation. Okay. And then step 3, ask before assigning meaning. Oh, what was going on for you? What made that kind of tricky or difficult for you? And is there something I'm missing?
Right.
To me, I love that one. Is there something I'm missing?
And I want to say, even if the kid has done something, I would say feels black and white, like just punch their brother.
It's good.
There's still a reason you want to get to. I'm telling you, even if it's the child didn't know another way to get that toy. I wanted the toy. If we approach that as, you bad kid who punched your brother because you selfishly wanted a toy, it's just reframe that as, oh, he wanted a toy to play with because that toy is exciting. He didn't know how to get that toy because his brother wouldn't just give it to him. And it feels different to the child to engage it that way and to then move in. I know we're going to get to the next part, but I'm just saying, even something that seems so black and white, just look at it from a different angle and it
Yeah.
shifts it.
Well, and that then go in step 4 to start reflect before correcting. So it sounds like you blank, right? Or I hear that you're saying this, And when we started doing this on a regular basis, here's what I want listeners to hear. When you do that, like the whole point of this journey of raising these kids is for you to be able to understand them, which is great, but also to help them understand themselves. And lots of times our reactions to these moments don't free them to really want to do that. They don't want to reflect on what they actually did, the behavior they did to actually get the toy or whatever. They don't want to do that because they're so afraid to do that, because once again, it's going to confirm the bad things that maybe you've said about them, or the way you're the bad thing that they hope is not true about them, right? And so I want that step 4, when you're reflecting before you correct, it's going to help you grow deeper into a relationship with your kid and for them to better understand their own motivations, right?
Right.
Okay. And then step 5 would be then you're going to teach or set the limit. So there you're going to be clear, you're going to be calm, you're going to be connected, and then you're going to set the limit. So if you wanted that toy, instead of doing that, you can do this, right? And that's when they're actually going to be open to your guidance and your teaching.
Right. And because I'm telling you, if a kid isn't doing homework, there's a reason for it. It's not just lazy. If your kid is breaking curfew, no matter what it is, there's something deeper going on.
Yeah.
And so I believe, parents are great people to move into those spaces with their child.
Yeah.
And who better to walk that difficult thing with their child is from something small of I really wanted a toy I didn't know how to get to something bigger and deeper. They're playing too much video games or screens and stuff. That's still what's going on in the brain. They need dopamine. Why, there's always something there, and we can approach it with them instead of,
and they will thank you for that. Yeah.
They will.
So I know, Sarah, some parents are listening to this. Some common pushbacks that parents might say is they'll say, but I know my kid. Seriously. Yeah. I know my kid.
I mean, hey, something in me.
I know, of course.
I know my kid.
They do this every time. Yeah. Okay, Trevor, I know you're saying, but they do this every time, right? Or I don't have time for these long talks. So that's another one, right?
And sometimes we don't.
Yes, of course, of course.
Something's happening.
Yes. But I also want to come back with some other truths.
Yeah.
Once again, you can't read your kid's mind, and you don't know the whole story.
Yeah.
Okay. So those are, if you're wrestling with those pushback statements and you're like, yeah, I do, but can't you also agree that that's true? You don't know the whole story and you can't read their minds.
If anything, I lean back on this isn't going to help.
Yeah, that's true.
So I might as well it's not going to help. It's not going to help my relationship. It's not going to help this moment. It's not going to help the growth I want to see in my child.
Yeah.
So if anything, it's just not going to help. So
I want you to understand patterns do matter. We think that does matter, right? That does tell you something about your kid, right?
Yeah.
But curiosity always needs to start first. Be curious. It's not that you throw out the patterns. We get that. It's still a piece of the puzzle, but I want to be curious to be able to add another piece to that puzzle. Why? So I get the better picture, right?
Yeah.
Really, you're just messing with a few puzzle pieces. You're not going to see the whole picture without them. And then even just 30 seconds of I'm just telling you, 30 seconds of curiosity can change your tone and the tone of the conversation. Okay. So the main takeaway that we'd hope that you would get from this conversation is you don't need to read your child's mind. You need to make space for their voice. So let me say that again. You don't need to read your child's mind. You need to make space for their voice. And they need to know that their voice matters in the relationship with you, because otherwise you'll lose it.
Yeah. That's really, really, really powerful to know that you're seen and heard. Your voice matters. And we can give that to our kids.
Yeah. And so you're going to get this wrong sometimes. We do as well. Okay. There's all types of times Sarah and I on a daily basis assume the motivations of our kids or the intent, right?
Yeah.
And so this is going to be ongoing practice for every one of us, including ourselves. But always keep in mind that repair matters more than perfection. So when you do mess up and you do act like you can read their mind and this causes disconnection, you can always go back and repair. So the reflection we kind of challenge you with this week is what changes this week if I choose curiosity over certainty? So kind of make that your goal this week. What if I change this week to be curious instead of certain? Okay. And so we want you to continue listening to the podcast, and we continue throughout 2026 to give you little nuggets like this that are going to help challenge you to become that parent that you want to be, but also to create the long-lasting connection and relationship you want to have with your child. So we thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. And if you ever feel like you need help in learning more of this and being the parent you want to be, definitely reach out to me at Kyle@artofraisinghumans.com. And I'd love to talk with you about how we help parents all over the world to create these kind of lifelong relationships with their children.
Sometimes it's just really helpful to have that outside perspective, somebody who's not in the moment. And I know we've used that so much in our own lives. Like, I need to get to talk to someone outside of this. And they have that insight or can help you shift it. If you're just really locked into this is what's happening, it's really hard to get your brain from that stuck spot. And someone on the outside can sometimes help you do that. And we've done that. And so I just want to offer that.
Yeah. And we thank you so much for taking time to listen to us. Have a wonderful day. The Art of Raising Humans podcast should not be considered or used as counseling, but for educational purposes only.